All right, welcome listeners. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the UNSECURITY Podcast. This is episode 131, and the date is May 11th, 2021. Joining me is my good friend. I'm going to call you my InfoSec buddy, Brad, because I like you, you know, and my partner in crime. We got to go commit some crimes. So, Brad, good to see you, man.
Good seeing you.
Also joining the UNSECURITY Podcast is our special guest, my good friend. Absolutely adore this guy, Mr. Chris Roberts. Welcome, friend. It's an honor to have you. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thank you, sir. Good to be on and hanging out.
Heck yeah. Man, one of my favorite things every week, you know, we do this shit show on Thursday nights. Man, you just get to know you and Ryan more and more, and it's awesome. I love it.
Yeah, it's fun hanging out, just talking. And I mean, that's the crazy thing about it. We just talk and it just kind of wanders. I mean, we kind of pick a topic-ish.
Yeah.
But, hey, speaking of topics, I know what I want to do. I did a, what the hell did I do? I did a LinkedIn post out about last night about crime. I like the whole committing crime thing. And I'm like, I really want to do that one. Really want to do that one down now. I want to actually see if it's possible still to plot, to be able to get away with it, to actually plot something and get away with it with all the electronics and the surveillance and everything else these days. I'm just like, damn, I was working it out in the head and I'm like, so we need to do a shit show on that at some point, whenever it's my turn or whatever, we'll figure it out.
What number is it this week? Shit, I don't remember. Yeah, I think that'd be a good one down there. Yeah.
I'm intrigued. It's yeah, I mean, it used to be, I think I said in the LinkedIn post, it used to be easy, you know, just basically whack over the head with a lump powder and just off to the nearest bloody big farm. It's gotten way more freaking complicated these days.
Oh yeah.
My wife watches so many of those crime shows, you know, those 48, First 48 and all this other stuff that I'm certain she could off me and nobody would ever know. We went to that axe throwing place, man. They got that axe throwing place in Victoria. It's called
Victoria Borough.
She is a ringer with that damn thing. I'm scared.
That's awesome. That's awesome. There's I did it at the Renaissance Festival a couple of years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And I just giggled because, I mean, I'm used to throwing knives. I mean, the buggers are slightly different, but once you get the technique, it's like, oh, this is fun. And then I'm like, okay, I want to get a set of these. And I'm like, the hell am I going to freaking do with them? Practice in the back garden where the neighbors can see me? I'm like, no, they already think I'm strange enough as it is.
That funk when you get it is just so satisfying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty good throwing that. Pretty good throwing the hatchets, but not the knives are not good at it.
Knives are nice. I always keep a set. Well, there's mine. I've got a set that are always close to me. So this is the 3 set, and these are custom made, balanced. In fact, actually, I should bring these with me. Ryan, we're going to kick out of these ones.
Yeah.
Those are my custom set. They always stay up there with me, so they're close at hand in case ever anything is necessary and needed.
You got some cool stuff laying around your house, man. So I was putting together, you know, kind of not necessarily the show notes, but, you know, usually write a blog post. I actually forgot to write the one last week for John Strand, but, you know, whatever. But I was putting together the one with you and so I like to go through, well, this is Chris's background, right? This is where Chris started. And I'm like, holy crap, man, that's a lot of stuff. So I figured, you know, for our listeners, let's talk about where did you start? How did you get started in this industry?
I think, I mean, I started messing with computers and I was at boarding school. So my parents were still together at the time. They were living over in Sardinia. My father was British Air Force. And so he was stationed in Sardinia at the time, and I'd grown out of the school there. So it was a case of they would either have to come back to the UK or I would go to boarding school. Well, 9-year-old kid, didn't exactly get on with his parent. Was like, fuck it, I'm going to boarding school. So I ended up going to boarding school, and boarding school and I did not get on with each other. We did not see eye to eye for a variety of reasons. But and it was first introduced computers there, and it was one of the kids at school, family pretty well to do, had bought him like this. It was a ZX81 at the time, and so I mean I was 10 years old, something like that.
So you're talking like 79, 80.
It was basically 80.
Wow.
Yeah, 79, 80, 81 time frame.
It's funny how similar a lot of these stories are, because it's very similar. My dad had my first computer that I messed with was a K-Pro. I don't know if you remember those. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then had an old, IBM with the two 5.5-inch floppies, and
Oh my gosh, yeah, the pre-X kind of stuff. Yeah, 88, those pre ones. Yeah, those were
programming DOS at that 8, 9 years old.
yeah. Well, I hit those things at 9, kind of got a bit of a bug, and then got to like 13, 14, and we were back in the UK, basically boarding school, and I disagreed so much that I was removed from boarding school forcibly. And then parents ended up, unfortunately, having to come back to the UK, and ended up at just a normal, regular comprehensive school, and got back into computers, in the library and stuff like that. But ended up getting one. I got an Atari, one of those 6800s for Christmas, and a friend of mine had one of the Commodore 64s. So, we were comparing notes and fucking tape decks, and we ended up basically getting a modem coupler, that was the end. I mean, that was the beginning of the end. All of a sudden, there was life outside of our four walls, as long as you knew where to dial, which you found in the magazines. You got the old magazines, and you go through the magazines to find out where the bulletin boards were, and one board led to another board later, and all of a sudden, you're looking at telephone bills, and then you're trying to figure out how to bypass the telephone bill, and it's all downhill from there. Let's face it.
Yeah. Wow, that's cool, man. So what was your first like paid security job, like legal?
Yeah, legal has to quantify it. I mean, my father had me arrested at 14. So,
wow.
yeah, no, he and I did not see eye to eye, unfortunately. 14 or 15.
I had my first felony at 14.
Yeah, well, they never prosecuted, because I mean, at the end of the day, I'm sitting there, and there's fucking, the police come to the door. My mother answers the door, and she's like, "Christopher, it's for you." I'm like, yeah, and very nice policeman was sitting there basically facing this kid with a Commodore and a freaking modem coupler, literally conked on the phone, and sitting down by the thing, and gotten access to the bank and shifted some money around.
It's funny.
Yeah, my father and I really, unfortunately, never really saw eye to eye. I think first paid computer job, because I didn't really get. I guess it was before I went into the military. So I started working at 15. I left school 15, 16. So I did my in the UK, it's O levels. So I did my O levels. I did my CSEs and my O levels and my AOs. So if you're crazy enough, they let you take A levels a year early. So I did a few of those. Well, like OAs, they're kind of a hybrid. Did a few of those a year early, and then left school and ended up having to go out to work because parents went their separate ways. All those kind of fun things. So my first job was night shift cook at a dairy. And I was still at school, so I was basically short order cook at and then the people will come in from the factory line and order normal food, and I would cook food and serve food. So I did that. When I was 15, 16, I worked all over the place. I worked in a place called Stebo Data Graphics, and they made, do you remember those catalogs, the electronics catalogs, those big electronics catalogs?
Mhm.
I actually helped build the programs to do all the typesetting for those.
Wow.
So all the formatting and all the alignment, rarely will I ever forget that. And that was really the first computer job, because I was figuring out how to make sure that when people typed it in, it went into the right places and prompted them for the right stuff and everything. And that was really the first one of those. Wow. That one I exited fairly quickly, because I found out that the people I was training were getting paid more than me. So when you walk into your boss's office with the printout from the database that's in a different country and go, why is everybody being paid more than me? Doesn't tend to end very well.
That's cool.
Yeah, bit of a hothead, shall we say.
I love people's past, just how they kind of weave their way into this industry. So then you went into the military.
I did a bunch of other things before I went in. I I worked in a warehouse. I worked for one of the British like research institutes. I can't remember who the hell it was now. And I was in public relations. God forbid, I was in public relations. I was like 16, 17 years old. And I'm like, oh, this is glamorous. I spent half my time stuffing freaking envelopes. And the other half the time filing. So that wasn't good. Did a whole bunch of other stuff. And yeah, I ended up going into the military. I was 18 and went into the military.
Wow.
And I was actually going into the Air Force. I was going to not quite follow in my father's footsteps. My father was enlisted. And I was going to be the arsehole son and go in as an officer. Yeah, go figure.
There you go.
Oh yeah. But did all the tests and all that kind of shenanigans. And then when they went to do the medical, between my hip and my knee were too long to fly fast jets. And basically I was too big. And so they're like, well, I could go either C-130s or Sea Kings, helicopters. And I'm like, well, helicopters should never be allowed in the air in the first place. They defy physics and they're scary. And C-130s, if you've ever been in or seen one of those things, they don't tend to fly straight. They go slightly sideways. It literally is just like a flying, 40-foot shipping container. And they kind of fly like this, nice and low and slow and strange things. So I'm like, yep, oh, hell no. So I literally walked out of this is in Bristol. And I walked out of the recruiting office in Bristol. I will never forget, walked down the street. And there was a downward street, walked down the street and I basically walked into the Royal Marines. And I said, I want to do that. And they kind of looked at me and they're like, well, you're big, you're a pack horse. Tested out okay. They send you to the initial camp for a couple of days to make sure you don't actually sink when they dunk you under the water. You do actually come back up again and that you've actually got half a brain. And that you can do all sorts of other things. Did that and then spent a long time training and a long time doing stupid things in all sorts of interesting places.
Wow. That's cool. Yeah, my father, I was an only child, and my father wouldn't let me enlist.
Yeah. My grandfather was a colonel in the Marine Corps. And when he found out, he was like, no, if you enlist, you will not make it to basic training because I will stop you. He's like, if you want to go in as an officer, go for it. I was like, cool. I'm not messing with you.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I've talked to a lot of the US. I think that the very big difference is the US Marines and the British Marine, very, very different philosophies on how they build people, on how they, it was always one of those interesting things. We always used to talk about it as if our commanding officer was like, oh, I'm going to charge at that, go charge at that. We at least could turn around and say, fuck off. There's actually a slightly better way doing this. And it always felt like the US Marine side of it would just off we go kind of thing. And it was a very, very different philosophy on the hows and the whys and the wherefores. Mm-hmm. I always felt a lot of, I would say pity is probably the wrong way of putting it, empathy, should we say. Because the philosophy seemed very much to break down the individual and turn them into a unit, whereas with us, it was you get turned into a unit very, very effectively, but you all have individual skills. You all bring something different to it, and how do we maximize that? How do we effectively use it? How do we put you? But I mean, we were operating in smaller teams as well, much, much smaller teams. We got dragged out of airplanes in very, very single-digit numbers to go sightseeing tours. Mm-hmm. So it was always interesting, different way of looking at things, but still that camaraderie, the effectiveness, the care and love for everybody, and that stupidity of like, oh great, why am I doing this again?
Right. Wow. Well, so you got to, I don't know how much more I want to spend on it, because we could spend like an entire day, I think. Just going through, probably a week going through
the history. Yeah, there's some history that's good. There's some history that's still. So I think I've signed the Official Secrets Act quite a number of times. Yeah, let's just say.
How about the first time you ran a company? So you ran this company called CCI5. I've never heard of it.
Well, I ran two companies in the UK as well. When I came out, I ended up starting up a consulting company, and we ended up selling one of them. Did okay at it. I mean, it was enough to pay I ended up not having to pay to come over here, but it was enough when I did get over here to actually set some stuff up. I ran CCI5. That was years ago. That was early days. That was what do we end up doing? That was before Psyopsis, I think, and that was early days of threat intel. I came out of doing threat intel for some interesting folks out of Virginia and DC neck of the woods.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up basically building, it was commercial counterintelligence. That was what CCI5 was, commercial counterintelligence. And it was the early days of threat intel. I mean, that was early 2000s. And we, it was too early. We were just too early. People were like, well, I don't know what it is. We don't need it. And we have no clue what we need to do. We just need to know what's inside our four walls. And I'm like, no, you don't. But we'll figure that. And, it is what it is.
It's crazy what a small world, because I didn't know you were in DC for any kind of time. I lived in Northern Virginia.
Oh, yeah.
Like corner.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah, did some time in that general neck of the woods. I got brought over here because we annoyed the hell out of the naval folks. I was working in the UK for some folks, and we were doing war games versus the US. And typical attitude was, oh, we'll show the Yanks a thing or two, and we did. And we broke into some stuff far enough that apparently all sorts of interesting little lights went up in all sorts of interesting places. And this was 1998, early mid 98, and apparently they were like, oh no, we're all splendid and impervious, and a bunch of bloody oiks from the colonies, had broken in and planted a couple of flags, and we initiated shutdown on some of the US's nicer toys that floated. And they weren't very happy with that, apparently. So we got sent over at the request of a couple of places, the farm being one, and another place, and basically were told to fix the shit, help them figure out what it was, and ended up staying over it.
That's really cool. It's a way better job than I had in '98. I was applying Y2K patches with a floppy disk.
Oh shit.
I was yeah, I think you had a way more exciting one.
I remember watching Y2K from a bunker. Let's just put it that way. We were all hunkered down in a bunker. It was Five Eyes stuff, basically. And, we were all basically, Australia's the first one to go over the edge. It's like, will it stay? Ah, yes. And we lost a few servers. That's it. And there's that sense of relief, but there's also that sense of, damn it, it would have been more fun if the entire place had just gone dark for a few weeks. I mean, more fun. But anyway, we did our job properly.
That would have been interesting.
I was still drinking them, so I don't remember. I think there was something that happened.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that whole freaking. Do you remember when that first came up? It was almost like that tap on the shoulder, like, I say there might be a bit of a problem coming up in a couple of years' time. I'm like, oh no, we'd be perfectly okay, nothing to worry about. And then that sense of, oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh no, not good.
Yep. Yeah, I didn't really have to do anything with that. I was a network guy at the time, so I was all Cisco shit all the time. I mean, I lived and breathed Cisco for, I don't know, probably 5 years at that point.
Oh, we were, probably like you, we were, just the amount of stuff. I mean, network stuff obviously was one part of it, but it's like, yeah, it shouldn't be too bad. Mm-hmm. But it was, all of the architectures and, the acres and acres of mainframes and servers and systems. And we had literally acres of freaking mainframes that we were like,
oh yeah,
we should be all right.
We'll find out.
Yeah. Oh, that was, you run the scenarios, but, and it's always, the stuff that we ended up losing, again, it's no different. We've almost not learnt our lessons 20 years in the future when you think about it. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily that stuff that you focused on. It's the periphery and the third party of the third party that you didn't think or you didn't see or they didn't or whatever. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, God damn it, that just nailed us.
Well, it's like, Evan, you keep saying, like, here we are 20, 30 years later, and still the basics. People still don't have the basics down.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. And that's what I was telling, John Harmon, because last week it's like, I mean, just take a recording of me, put it inside a doll, stuff it in there, and just push
Yeah.
play on loop.
Yeah.
And then just give the doll the money. I'll stop by every once in a while and just pick it up.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it feels like, unfortunately. And it has been that way. I saw an interesting, I was on LinkedIn, I was surfing around LinkedIn earlier, and one of the big, I won't put names on this one. Shit shows different rules as far as I'm concerned, but I'll be civilized here. But one of the very large security consulting companies that keeps advocating for, fuzzy acronym wares of God only knows what that they're trying to sell people, actually had a piece on there that was like, we're okay with fixing the basics. Like, we're advocating to fix it. I'm like, oh, so you finally got on that bus, 20 odd years too late. But yeah, it's because it's not sexy, it's not going to get you a talk at RSA. It won't get you a talk at Black Hat. It won't get you noticed, but it does mean you got to roll up your sleeves and get some simple shit done. And I wonder if that's why, you see so many people coming into this industry. They're like, I want to break things. I want to be a red teamer. Oh, why? Quit that shit. Come in and help us fucking fix some of this stuff. It ain't sexy, but there's the screwdriver. Get on with it.
Yeah. It's a lot more work. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's definitely utilitarian, but and it seems like, I don't know, 90, I don't have the numbers because our data sucks in our industry too, but it seems like, 90+% of all the data breaches come from some missing, at least it played a role, like some basic something. Like, I don't understand how anybody would ever I came from old school, right? And so do you guys, but like backups. I don't understand why I would leave my backups online ever.
Well, because the cloud will provide. The cloud will provide. It will take care of you. It is there as this nebulous thing that will always look after you. Trust in the cloud.
Did you ever see that Marcus? You just reminded me of Marcus Ranum.
Oh, which one?
His cloud video. Marcus, if you just do Marcus Ranum cloud.
Right.
It's where it's like where your bits, they get moist.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So if you Google Marcus Random Cloud, it should be either the top. It was done in 2009, but I remember when that first came out, because when cloud came out, right, we were guys like us. We were like, we've been doing this forever. I mean,
right.
What do we call what? And it's like zero trust now, right? Implement zero trust. It's like, is that like default deny? Maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah. Well, I mean, that's.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go for it.
I was just to say, I did that. I did a webinar last week, and it was like data science and cybersecurity, and going through all the different things that you need to do. And somebody goes, "Well, wouldn't zero trust just fix this?" And I was like, "Well, I mean, yes, but it's hard, and nobody does it. So it's a theoretical question, to be honest."
Yeah.
When it comes down to, I mean, I was doing some adversary obstruction requirements, maybe. NSA issued some things. They want to do this adversary obstruction requirements, right? And so you look at it and it's like, there's so much work that would have to be done in order for you to really get to this default deny sort of zero trust thing. It's like, I think maybe we just start over.
I mean,
Build a parallel environment, right? Put your shit in the right places, default deny, and then migrate stuff over into that new environment.
But now, in theory, if you think about it, the cloud gives you, I mean, this is one of those advocacy logics for the cloud. If we'd have treated it as a greenfield environment and gone, hey, legacy stuff over here, let's get somebody in who knows what they're doing, how they're doing it, the ability to containerize, the ability to put all the security and controls and everything in place. I mean, it does offer that amazing ability to do that. However, unfortunately, what most people did were like, whoa, new storage space and a bunch of other shit to put, and went, and moved their problems from point A and just basically duplicated the problems at point B. And now they're wondering why they're in such a pain in the ass of a state.
And some of them were left it at point A, and now you got it at point B too. So now you got two of them.
Oh my gosh, yeah, totally. Yeah, it's it really did offer a very, very clean way to say, hey, we can probably move and sort out some of our stuff. But back to the Y2K thing. I mean, we had to, the ability to test Y2K was, well, hang on, we're gonna have to take some of the production system, move it over here, replicate duplicate, all this other kind of stuff, and we're gonna have to do this with physical boxes.
Mhm.
And then see what happens. And by the way, if we do it over here, we're not sure it's going to work on these other 100. Now you're just like, fucking, I'm just going to spin a couple of 100 up in the cloud, run a couple of tests, and we're in good shape, or we're not. It's
Right.
There's definitely a huge benefit to it, but so many people don't use it correctly.
right.
Well, it's like any tool, right? And that's one of my big frustrations is, you have a tool, you have a hammer.
Yeah.
Hammers for hammering. Don't use a hammer to saw shit.
Mhm.
A saw is a saw, right? You use
Yeah.
it properly. If you don't, you lose a finger or an arm.
Well, I mean, the other, I was talking to somebody the other day about this, and we used to have 3 tiers. That was it. We had web, application, database. That was it. It was kind of simple.
Yep.
And now you look at how far we've abstracted that communication. It's like networking. Remember the days of networking? You didn't know what the hell was going on. You basically played the game of follow the packet.
Mhm. Yep.
And you do the same thing with application layer stuff these days. Your transaction from one end of an app to the, it's crazy the amount of abstraction and the amount of stuff that we've chucked into this thing these days, and taking the simple 3-layer architecture and just, God only knows what we've done to the poor thing.
And what was it? The average web, I'm going to try to find this. The average web transaction in 2018, 35 systems or
Oh,
something.
that was it, 35. Yeah, it was some ridiculous number.
It's like, how in the hell? And then you think, and then when you consider, the applications and all the libraries
Mm-hmm.
that they're calling, that you have no control over kind of how that's maintained.
There's a lot of blind trust in those libraries.
Oh my God. Seriously, how many days is it? Hold on.
Have you guys had Mark Miller on at all on this one?
Mm-mm.
You should
No.
get Mark Miller on. Mark
Alright.
is great. He used to work over at Sonatype, and we're talking about libraries and stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
Hang on a sec. It might get noisy for a sec.
No problem.
Mark Miller he was over at Sonatype. He's now, what's the name of the place he's now? Jupiter One.
Oh.
But he runs like DevSecOps, a whole bunch of DevSec, absolutely amazing guy. But Sonatype was one of those companies that would go out and basically watch all these third-party libraries and the amount of issues and challenges on them. And I mean, it's crazy.
Oh yeah, it's you've done it with I'll do the capture the flag stuff and need something new on the Kali box, and it's like you must install 42 new libraries, and it's like
Yeah.
I've got 15 versions of the same library because none of the applications use the same version.
Yeah. And then your question is like, okay, so what, I mean, our question is always, what am I putting on this bloody computer? Where did it come from? Whose hands? It's the same thing as, downloading stuff onto one of these bloody things.
Yeah.
Hey, download this new app. No. Who made it? What are they doing with it? Where did it come from? What's the behind it? What's their ulterior motive? And 10 other questions that we ask, but unfortunately 99% of the population tends not to ask. Welcome to Milo, by the way.
Hey, Milo.
Oh, that's funny. My dog, one of my dogs is Milo,
Oh, no way.
and my other dog looks just like that. I was like, whoa.
Yeah. So this is Milo. We have he's 3 years and change old. Daisy is one of the other ones. She's 5 or 6-ish, give or take a little bit. We don't know exactly. Both rescue ones.
Yeah,
And then we have a puppy called Otis. So we have Milo and Otis.
that's cool.
And he's going to be about the same size, give or take a little bit. Oh.
He sits and watches out the front door when my wife or kids go. He just lays there watching out the window.
Totally cute.
Love it.
Buddy.
Dogs are the best.
Totally.
So we had this big thing that happened this week, and I don't want to. We can go wherever we want to go with it. I haven't publicly commented anywhere on it because there's so many damn experts, right? I mean, it's funny how these like experts just come out of nowhere.
Yeah, no
Yeah,
shit.
I've been asked, I don't know how many times, and my response is, I'm not really surprised. The thing I'm most surprised about is that it took this long for something like this to happen.
Well, here's the thing. This is the stupid thing is, this isn't the first time shit's happened.
Well, to be public, I mean, like,
It's one, to be public. Secondly, on our shorts.
right.
Estonia pipeline,
Yeah.
Ukrainian pipeline, Kazakhstan's pipeline's gone down.
Oh.
Number of others have gone down. The foundry in Germany. I mean, this is.
It was interesting that the malware was checking to see if the language was set to Russian, and if so, leave the machine alone.
Well,
Yeah,
that's the way the Russians operate, though. You can operate from within Russia as long as you're not attacking Russian assets.
Yeah.
Okay, so China's got a similar kind of thing going on. Let's be honest. And I mean, I hate to say it, and we all know it's true, is until you can actually find if we are going to, it depends on who we decide to blame on this one. I do love the fact that the potential individuals have come up and gone, oh, I do apologize.
Right.
Sorry, we didn't actually mean to cause quite the amount of chaos we've caused. Really sorry about that.
Well, not just that, but didn't they even say like, we actually give a portion of our proceeds to charity? And it's like,
Their ethics.
Yeah.
I will say, at least they don't attack hospitals. That's better than most.
Well, they don't directly. Again,
Well,
it's like anything. It's there was always that. There was for those of you that read. I like my Terry Pratchett, my fantasy novels, and there's one of the Terry Pratchett ones that was a very interesting novel, and it focused around this guy that was in human deception, was a forger. And he was always like, well, I run my forgeries against banks. I haven't hurt people. And if you actually do the calculations, and they did it on the, they actually said, well, actually, you've killed, 2.5 people through your actions. And this is where it gets really interesting. Directly, they might not have killed somebody, but indirectly, the consequences of what they did, because so many people have had to shift, how many people had accidents, because so many things have had to happen. Stresses, all this stuff. Indirectly, who have you killed?
Right.
Yeah.
That's what gets really interesting.
Yeah. Well, it couldn't have happened at a worse time either, because I think, our economy in the United States, we've flooded it with cash. So we're already sort of headed towards this inflationary thing. And now you cut off supply of a commodity.
Yeah.
But no, not really called supply. Let's be honest.
Right.
There's
maybe disrupted it a little bit.
There we go. I'll take disruption.
Yeah.
Cut it off. Big difference. You want to cut off supply? I'll give you 2 other pipelines to really do that with.
Right.
And we know they're not secured as well, because I don't know, the one up north has had problems, and nobody's targeted the one down south yet, because maybe this was a practice run. I did a LinkedIn thing. I did a note on LinkedIn.
Oh, is that one?
I did it on Twitter, and it was what I said. Where the hell is the stupid thing? There it is. I put out. I said, "Why are we seemingly surprised about the attack on the pipeline? 80 odd votes. We're not. It's expected. 70% got that one. We didn't think nothing. We didn't know 1%. This is just the start. 30%. So, yeah, it's interesting.
I can't remember who it is. There's a comedian that has a bit that is, I think, relevant to what you mentioned about the security of the pipeline. And he's like, what do these talking heads go on the TV show on Sunday? And they're giving these attackers ideas. They're like, hey, here's this critical piece of infrastructure. If you remove this one bolt, it takes down everything. And it's only guarded by one guy, Bob, who's a bit of a drunk. So just.
Let's arguably, let's be honest. If we go back to intelligence gathering, if we did this a couple of years ago, there's a ThoughtCon talk that Jesse and I did, and this is back at like ThoughtCon number. Actually, shit, hang on, because I got my gold badge. When is it? God, holy shit. 10 years ago, 2011.
Oh, wow.
So we did this .com talk in 2011, and we went after the food supply.
Mm.
And we're like, okay, think of the hierarchical needs that humans need: heat, shelter, warmth, food, and a few other things. And we're like, let's because we heat is your fuel lines and power lines. It's like, all right, we know we can take those down. Water, light, same kind of things. Water plants, we know, are a complete shit show. We've had so many of those have been nailed over the last few years. We're like, let's go after food. So we did. And we took two different attack vectors. We went after one very, very famous tractor manufacturer and food supply manufacturer, who I won't name, but they're very green and gold in their colors, kind of like Green Bay Packers, which is rather useful. And then the other one we went after was the actual food supply chain itself. So in other words, if anything actually made it through, what could we do on that end? And we gave the talk at Falcon, and this is 10 years ago now. And we figured out that we could influence 60 to 75% of the crops just through two, at the time they were FTP servers, through two FTP servers.
Yeah.
And that was global crops. Yeah.
The scary part is with, food or agriculture, it's not a quick fix.
No.
You can't just grow a cow or grain. You got to wait.
Yeah, and we figured out what we ended up doing, because farmers are smart, let's be perfectly honest. And we ended up putting two sets of programs in. One program planted the seeds short. So it went through the algorithm and said if it's barley or corn or a couple of others, because the farmer has to type in what they're planting into the planting system. And we built a math algorithm loop into the assembler code that said if it's one of these ones, instead of planting at X depth, do an X to the negative. So instead of planting like 1.5 inches deep, it only plants it like 1/3 of an inch or 1/2 an inch deep, which means the crop comes up too early, which means it gets affected by weather and wind. And now farmers are smart. They'll replant the field. We put a secondary loop in that then said plant deep. So instead of planting 1 inch, it plants it 2 inches deep, which means it just doesn't come up. And we ran that scenario for like barley, corn, wheat, and a few others. And at the time they were two FTP servers. Now they're two SFTP servers, so they're way more secure. And they were responsible basically for pretty much of the global, every single one of these tractors and combines and everything else went to these two servers to get all their updates. And we left a smiley face in there, which as far as I'm aware, still to this date is still there.
That's crazy, man.
And so, I would argue that if we wanted to do stuff, the data points are out there. This isn't hard stuff to find. I mean, in this case, all we did was basically get one of their programmers off of eBay, and look through it and see where it was talking, what it was talking. Then went out and did the recon on their IP space and everything else and figured it all out. Then we went up to one of the tractor supply places up here and basically talked to the folks and social engineered and got in and did a few other things there. And talked to a couple of farmers, and all of a sudden you correlate. That's no different than pipelines. I mean, shit, that's just public knowledge. You want to know where our digital pipelines come into this country. I mean, there's a flag planted on the damn buildings, for crying out loud. That shit ain't hard to find.
Right. Yeah, what did I say, man? 580, seriously, just.
I thought you had 800 and something.
I do 857. I got my dyslexia sunk in.
That's okay. 580 is good. I mean, 580 is nicer.
857.
Yeah.
It depends on who you ask.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. No, it's it's always that interesting conversation. We all know, or we should all know if we've got any sense about us, that we are all in each other's systems. From a nation standpoint. And so I think there's the same thing we had in the Cold War. There were a number of us hovering over that trigger button, but nobody, thankfully, was at the point where they were going to be the one responsible for the end of the world, basically.
Yeah.
Everybody hovered over it, and it was a really good brinksmanship. but nobody actually pulled the trigger. And I'd argue we're in a similar kind of boat. You know, we know China's infrastructure is absolutely amazing and massive and has been built out in a crazy way over the last, 10, 20 years. And you know the architecture and systems they have, and you know damn well we're kicking around their systems. The same thing with our friends over in Russia, and the same thing with our friends over in other countries.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you know damn well they're all kicking around in our systems. And the irony of it is, in a number of cases, I always use my grandmother's computer in North Korea. We're all traversing through some very similar pipelines. And it's like the old days in Berlin. I mean, I remember being deployed in a few places where, I mean, you literally would, it was the spy versus spy. It's like, oh, no, I don't see you today. I'm just going to keep walking by in this direction. I mean, we're doing the same thing in the digital world. We're hitting systems. We're like, hang on.
Right.
We're not the only ones here.
Oh yeah.
And you kind of tiptoe across everybody else's bloody system. Now, back in those days, the only people that had that button were the big boys, shall we say. Unfortunately, any hooray Henry with a freaking decent laptop and a good enough cause can, unfortunately, can cause some level of damage. No two ways about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the problem's only going to get worse. You know what I mean? Because we still haven't fixed those fundamental things, those fundamental holes, right? They're still there. And we just keep adding more and more to it.
Well, we keep abstracting it. You think about it. I mean, we keep abstracting it. We've gone from 3 layers to what, 37 layers now.
Right.
I wonder if we just abstract it so far. I wonder if that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to like almost outmaneuver ourselves. If I turn off the computer, it doesn't matter because there's 6 other copies of it in the cloud, or there's other bits of it, or I've got 6 other pathways, or, I remember the early days of F5. It didn't matter if you turned off this computer, because the way it worked, it would just go to the next one or the next one or the next one, and so I wonder if we're just trying to abstract our way out of the problem. Rather than solving the basics, we literally put so many layers between it. I wonder if that's what we're trying to do.
Adding complexity, for sure.
Adding complexity to solve the basics. Oh my God, we need to do a talk on this. How to add complexity to your environment to solve the basics.
AI and machine learning.
I'm stopping at Micro Center and Best Buy on the way home.
I'm not allowed to go to Micro Center by myself anymore.
I'm not either with my card. I'll go with the corporate card.
There you go.
Yeah, so you may not get a paycheck, sorry, but we're gonna have complex as hell shit. It'd be so cool.
I wonder if that's what we're doing. Seriously.
Yeah.
If that is like I wonder if that's rather, because I mean, think about it as humans. I mean, as human nature, we don't always like doing basic, simple stuff. We've always tried to out-engineer our way through a problem. If we didn't, we'd still be plowing fields by hand, or we'd still be using horses. We'd still be living in houses with holes in the roof because we had fire. We would not have advanced ourselves far enough to literally out-engineer our way through some of these situations.
One of my saying is, it's not, necessity is not the mother of all invention. Laziness is the mother of all invention.
There might be something to that.
I mean, think about how many times, well, that's hard work. I'm just going to find a workaround so I don't have to do that.
Oh yeah, and that freaking workaround can take God knows how long to design and develop. And unfortunately, picking up a piece of paper, all right, I bend down, I pick the stupid thing up. Oh no, I can't do that. I'm going to invent a vacuum cleaner to do it for me.
Right.
And then I'm going to invent, not only am I going to invent a vacuum cleaner actually takes time and effort. So now I'm going to invent a Roomba to do it for me. Now that Roomba takes code programming, takes all these bloody things to do, and takes God knows how many apps and coding and countless. I mean, it's $1,000 fucking vacuum cleaner. Bend the hell down and pick up the piece of freaking paper.
Right.
Oh, I'm going to spend $1,000 on a vacuum. No.
Right. No, that's an intriguing thought, man. This will be one of those things where as I'm going to bed tonight, it'll pop in my head and I'll be like, Son of a bitch. I'm not going to bed again tonight.
No, it is one of those interesting things. I wonder if that's, think about it. How long have we been talking about basics?
Right.
I mean, Y2K, let's be perfectly honest, was almost that reset button. So since that reset button, we've been talking about the basics. We got through Y2K and we're like, okay, great. We still have some stuff to sort out. We still have architectures. We still have inventory. We have to maintain this, we have to keep doing this stuff. And it dropped off in pursuit of all sorts of new shiny stuff. So 20, 21, 22 years, and we don't even talk about passwords. Let's not even go down that flipping rabbit hole.
Right. That's a good
And
point.
yeah,
Like you said, the basics it's hard work and it's not sexy.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. Kind of like me. It's
I'm with
fitting.
you on that.
Now that's making sense too. Son of a gun. About as basic
are.
as things.
That's
We
why you
are
can relate to it.
Yeah, right. So
this is gonna have to be a post or a talk. We need to do this. Needs to be like an RSA talk.
yeah.
How to engineer your. We need to come up with a couple of titles for this. We got to put a talk in for this one for shits and giggles. Seriously.
Yeah. And then do some examples.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's tons. I mean, take your pick.
No, I mean, but like purposely, like.
Oh yeah. You could probably call some companies out if you wanted to go that route.
I'm talking yeah, interesting. I have to give that, yeah. You can go pretty deep. I like it. I think it's a great idea. So the pipeline today, it's not operational, fully operational.
It is. No, actually, I got a. I can't say where I got it from, but I got a report. We'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
I thought it was partially.
Yeah, it's partially back up and running again. They've got certain functionalities on some of them. Where the hell is it? I have it.
What's your prediction on when the next one? You got a prediction?
What'll be interesting on that particular topic will be to see if the individuals that did it end up getting caught and getting held accountable. I think that will provide some interesting guidance.
Mm-hmm.
The fact they publicly came forward and went, whoops, right. Means that they've realized what they've done. And let's face it, I mean, you kind of probably already knew something, but they probably also realized that every single freaking agency, not just in the US, is breathing down their digital necks, looking for somebody's balls to hang out to dry on the washing line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is probably one of the few that you're going to get attribution relatively quickly.
Oh yeah.
Well, and even the Russians, I think, will turn against them.
Well, I think that's where it's going to be interesting.
If I give you these criminals, maybe I can trade this for something.
Well, they just escalated it with the SolarWinds, with that whole debacle.
Yeah.
So buy a little bit of goodwill back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So line 4 is operating under manual control while the inventory is available. Main lines offline, lateral lines between terminals are now operational. Product inventory, storage tanks, and everything else is in place. They figure incremental phased-in and return approach, basically looking to return to normal operations by Friday. We'll see if that actually happens. So that's about all I can say. But yeah, so interesting.
I thought that the supply is good until Monday, maybe Tuesdays, when you're going to really start seeing stations running out of gas and the chaos really beginning.
Yeah.
Well, okay, you say that, but I mean, there's already places like, we're running. Well, because again, people, this is toilet paper all over again.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is.
I didn't run to fill up my car. I don't drive. I don't go anywhere.
Right.
I put like 3,500 miles on my car in the last 15 months.
Oh, no way.
And if push comes to shove, I'll just steal my neighbor's gas.
But simple. I mean,
Yeah, like I drive to go to the store and that's about it. And it's 10 miles. I go once a week. Otherwise, I'm out and about
I go out
on my
for
bike or walking.
I go out for drives. To me that's like
Mm.
my peace and quiet time, my solitude. Jen and I'll go out for drives. Sometimes we'll take, one of the civilized cars and just go for a cruise around just to, get out of here. Or I'll take one of the cars up into the hills or something.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta do a bike ride,
Motor or pedal?
pedal.
Got it. Yeah, I got to lose a little bit more weight before I enjoy doing that again, or at least get pleasure out of it, as opposed to wondering what the hell I'm actually trying to kill myself for.
It always
I-
hurts my butt.
Well, I used to do
More.
the MS tours, multiple sclerosis,
Yeah.
100 miles in 2 days.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, those are rough little buggers. Those ones.
Did a bunch of those younger. I was like, I'll be great. I used to do this and realized that I'm old and out of shape. I didn't do anything like that, but I was like, 10 miles in and I was like, uh-oh, I should turn around now.
Yeah, it's I've dropped a bunch. I've still got a bunch to go, and I'm actually climbing at the moment. I started back about 2 weeks ago, back into the climbing. I like climbing.
Mhm.
And so I've gone back, and honestly, all I'm doing at the moment is just a little bit of bouldering back and forth, just trying to remember how the body works on a wall, trying to remember fulcrum points and pivot points and balance points, and just trying to build up like the strength here, 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 and here,
Yeah.
So get that done, drop a bit more weight, and then maybe I'll get back on the. I used to enjoy riding, but shit, that was, like you were saying, 15 years ago, and shit, another what am I now?
Before I had kids.
245. So yeah, 45 pounds lighter.
I told my wife when we move, because I'm a chapter guy. So like, if you look at my life, there's like compartments. There's adolescence. I closed that chapter. And I moved on to like high school. I don't have any high school friends, right? I closed that chapter. I don't want any of my high school friends. And then and you go from that to the drinking phase, right? I don't have any of those friends anymore. So now you're in this like working in probably the most unhealthy part of my life because I don't sleep enough. I don't, whatever. But the next chapter is going to be, I think, that chapter, just healthy, exercising, being disconnected, stress-free. That's the hope,
I hate to say it, and you're not going to want to hear this, but you need to do it before you hit your 800 and something odd days. Otherwise, and I mean this as nice as I can, a very good friend of mine just turned around to me a while ago and said, "Hey, you don't see many old large people." And I'm like, "You're right."
It is the truth.
He was a little blunter than that, but that was the truth. It was, between him saying that and my daughter was like, "Hey, I want you around for a bit longer."
Mhm.
That's honestly why yeah, that'll do it. When the Rugrat turns around and says, "Hey, I want you around for a bit," I'm like, time to listen.
So one last thing before we, wrap up, I want to hear about how are things going at SciNet. So SciNet is kind of your latest kind of full-time gig, right? How are things going there?
It's interesting. It's interesting. I like the philosophy of what they're trying to do.
Mhm.
Let's put it that way. They're not chasing trophy companies. They're not going for the big companies. They actually care about wanting to help the smaller organizations. Companies that have maybe only got a couple of IT staff and InfoSec staff. That's their core target.
Mhm.
So I appreciate that focus, and that fits in really, really nicely because one of my talks is, the forgotten, it's the poem, basically the poem off of the Statue of Liberty.
Right.
Bring me, and it goes on about that. So I like that philosophy. We have some work to do when it comes to how marketing and how sales are working. I mean, no two ways about it. I think like any company that's growing, like any company that's trying to figure it out how to message, the big hairy thing comes on board and starts calling BS on a couple of things, and we got to figure it out. It's there's some tough things going on, no two ways about it. There's some good stuff. I mean, we got the community stuff started, which actually makes me really, really happy.
Yeah.
Although, I've been down for 4 or 5 days, and now we need somebody else to help in that. I got to get some help in on the community. So we need that moving. I think there's some, bless you. There's Jen in the office just sneezing away.
Bless you, Jen.
Kevin says bless you and says hi. So I think there's definitely some good stuff. I think the challenge, for the company as well is it's not well known in the US.
Right.
So it's also, when you go in, it's having those conversations with people and trying to help them understand why there maybe is a difference, why the focus is different. And in doing that, you've also got to make sure that the sales is different, that the marketing is different. It's not the same shit basically given in a different way. So there's definitely some work and some love that needs to be done there. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, it's the technology looks, cool.
I like what they've done. They basically, the stuff that we've talked about, for me, it's that the late Sir Colin Chapman stuff, which is simplify, then add lightness. It's like, how do we take this entire rack of shit that even the big companies have a problem dealing with, but let's face it, doesn't prevent a damn thing. At the very best, it gives you kind of an early warning if you're paying attention.
Right.
How do we take that? How do we make it simpler? How do we make it easier? How do we make it more effective? How do we take the best bits of it? We don't need everything. Perfect example, I traded one of my cars out, and I traded from a newer Mercedes to a slightly older one. And I went from having, when I get into the car, you can choose your interior light color. And, I went from being able to choose, 15,000 different light colors to only being able to choose 6 or 8. I'm like, oh no, what a hardship. Terrible.
I like that approach though.
But that's the thing. It's like, I took a step back and to some degree, they've done the same thing. They've gone, you don't need 15,000 freaking selections. Let's give you 6 or 8. Right. Let's give you some of the best things of the user behavior stuff, of the deception stuff, of the firewall stuff, and a few other things. Let's bundle it into something you'll actually use.
The big thing that we've seen is those big, complicated solutions are rarely configured properly. You don't have all the things pointing to it because it's so complex. So the simpler it is to use, the more likely it is it's going to be done correctly.
Yeah, I mean, no two ways about it. And I think that to me is where the messaging, we're trying to shift the messaging to be less of I hate acronyms. I mean, they drive me nuts. I'm like, talk a proper civilized English language to me. So for me, it's like, it's not XBA, UBA, and all the other shit. It's like, hey, I'll give you a better set of eyes. Let me help you with a better set of eyes. And then we actually have some pretty cool stuff that does a lot of the incident response side of the world. So if it sees something, it's like, I got you covered. Let me do a little bit of analytics. Let me actually take from point A, point B, and point C and see if I can do some correlatory stuff. And let me just give you a better set of hands so I can actually do some of this playbooks, basically. Let me see if I can do some of the simple stuff for you and say, hey, look, I saw a problem over here. I saw it on these 4 other machines. This is what I've done. I need you to make a decision as to whether you want to do more of this. And then we're in good shape.
It goes to the communication issue we have in the industry. And, it sounds like your messaging is aimed at the quote unquote normal people versus all these acronyms trying to impress people. And they're like, I don't understand that.
I had one in my inbox today. I mean, I had one in my. Ironically enough, I had a competitor's email in my Signet inbox today that was trying to sell me, and I'm like, guys, I just need to send you a message and tell you I hate you. And it's not because I hate you; it's just I hate how you're trying to sell things to me.
Right.
Because it's just like it just isn't going to work. It's another one of these.
Invisible processes.
Yeah, there we go. I mean, it literally was one of those. And it was all acronyms, like all acronyms. And I'm like, I had to Google a few of them. I'm like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. And I don't know. And this bugger's got gray hair and has been dicking around this industry for more years.
Right.
Yeah,
I was just talking to Oscar yesterday about the zero or the invisible process. They're still bugging us.
Are you serious?
Well, it comes down to, one, we're product agnostic, right? On purpose. If we tell you your firewall sucks, it sucks. You know,
Yeah.
we're trying to sell one. But you know, we will not talk crap about your product. I think, you know, so it's more like kind of that thing, and
Yeah.
and so we said from the beginning, let us get our hands on it. Send us one,
Hmm.
you know, and then we can tell you what we think. And I don't know how many times has Oscar asked about that, like
Oh,
6 times.
yeah.
That's
He was
crazy.
complaining to me the other day about it too.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So
That's
the last time he was like, you know, whatever. And
yeah.
so that guy called another guy here at FRSecure to complain about Oscar was being a jerk. And it's like, come on, we don't play those games here. We're just going to laugh at you.
Oh, well, that's the problem. Other companies do play those games. I mean, how many times have you seen that end run done? And that's what pisses me off about golfing and that kind of stuff is like, we'll be the gatekeepers that say your tech sucks, don't want it anywhere near it. All of a sudden, you suddenly find the CXO or somebody's been taken out for a golf dinner or been taken out for a steakhouse or something. And now you're being asked to give it a second look. I'm like, you assholes.
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean,
And for me, it's like, that's like instant fire.
oh yeah.
You know what I mean? But and I actually know a place where it's happening right now, but I'm letting it happen because I want to see. I want the person who's managing that person to handle it themselves.
Right.
If they won't, then you know eventually you have to do it yourself. But
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that sucks. It's again, you know, it's the way I look at it is, you know, the Signet stuff. I mean, the same with you guys. I mean,
Yeah.
what is it? There's 31 million smaller organizations just in the US. Some are gonna say no. Get over it. Focus on the other 29,999,999. Except no sometimes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And why don't you pick an actual problem and actually solve it?
What? There we go. I mean, that's the other big one for me. You know, that's where I kind of like what we're doing. I like I like the fact, I like the focus. I like the simplify side of it. I like a few other things. I think the other stuff is, I'm hoping, touch wood, that the other stuff is just teething problems, that it's, you know, growing pains, that's teething problems. What I really want is more collaboration between the sales and marketing folks and them to focus on the US stuff and understand the US market. That's part of the reason I think I got dragged into the company. But if I'm getting dragged in, then you know, one, you're paying me a lot of freaking money. Secondly, start listening to me. So let's just hope that balances out. We'll see. I mean, either it'll work well or it won't. You know, it is what it is these days.
Yeah. Yeah. And I liked it from the get go, man. I mean, the first time you and I were talking about it, I was like, I mean, it looks good. It looks, I mean, I don't know the technical details. I've never had my hands on one or it.
I'll get you access. We'll have to figure that one out. We'll talk offline. I'll get you in. I actually would love your thoughts on it because when you think about, I mean, that's honestly with the Hillbilly Hit Squad, the stuff we're doing with Dave, we're pivoting a lot of Dave to actually mimic a lot of this deliberately because I think what we'll end up doing with Dave is we will end up consuming like a larger license, and then we'll just basically sub that license down to all our clients because a lot of our clients are just smaller.
Yeah.
Signet doesn't directly deal with small companies, but they're doing a lot of work to enable like the MSPs and MSSPs to deal with the smaller, you know, 1, 2, 5, 10 person companies. So at least they're carrying on that side, which is nice.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's cool. Right.
Although they're caught up, I just got a message from Lena, who's our HR leader over there, and they're over in Israel. So I just got a message from her. You know, she's like, "Hey, hope you're starting to feel better." She's like, "Take care, we're being bombed," and I'm like, "Oh shit!" Because of all the mess that's going on over in Israel at the moment. That's another neck of the woods. Seriously, somebody just needs to put 3 or 4 of those countries in the room and start bashing heads together until they can freaking agree.
Yeah, it's
I wish
crazy.
it was that simple.
And it's always been that way, right?
I know.
It's always been the most hotly contested piece of real estate like ever.
I know. It's so frustrating because I mean, having having been to almost all of those different countries, I mean, there are some amazing, amazing people in each one of those countries. I mean, I was talking to a friend over in Iran the other evening, and I mean, I hate the fact that we paint people with that same brush. I mean, it drives me nuts because I love having conversations with all the different people in different countries, and I just freaking wish. I wish.
And we do that to each other.
I was gonna say, think about how much we fight and have these wars, and it's over like 3 to 5% different. Like 95% of the time we agree. This 5%, well, scorched.
I just,
If you actually have an open dialogue, a lot of times you'll find that you actually agree on that 3 to 5% too.
Yeah.
I have a buddy of mine, used to be my boss way back when, like, I don't know. And we're both kind of intellectual, right? And we like to, I'm not going to do something if I don't feel like it's right. So we would get in these kind of like heated arguments in the server room, like hours. And then we'd be like, you're arguing the same damn thing I am. We just came at it totally different angles. And it was like, son of a bitch. We did that so many times.
It's, I just, this is the interesting one. I mean, we hit this on the shit show the other evening when I was talking about some of the research I'm doing on the digital side of the world. So taking what we consider a human in a digital essence and moving them into a digital realm. I have probably a naive hope, we'll just leave it at that. I have a naive hope that if we could go from a physical realm into a digital realm, that we wouldn't have these same, we're not going to have borders. I mean, let's be perfectly honest, they just don't exist. Now, can we put borders in place? Absolutely. Could we do it a little differently? I bloody well hope so.
Right.
Maybe we could actually learn something for a change, but you would hope that we would get rid of so many of these basically territorial disputes, one better way of putting it.
Right.
I mean, that is the one nice thing in the digital realm. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm on this AS400. Oh, that's oh, great. I'll tell you what, I'll spin up another one just over here.
Right.
Great. Now I'm on this one. You can, done. No issues. No problems there at all. Have a nice day. Unfortunately, we can't quite do that with physical land, but in the digital realm, there should be no disputes. I mean, that's from that standpoint. A little naive, but man,
it's like two guys walking by each other in a biker bar, right? Neither one of them are going to step aside, and so they bump into each other. It's like, really, dipshits? Come on.
Yeah, I know. I just wish there's a lot of stuff. Too much. Seen too many stupid things over the years. Unfortunately, when I was in the military, one of the places I ended up getting dragged into was Bosnia.
Oh, wow.
And that was not fun. That was when basically, like, pretty much all my faith in humanity just basically tanked, and I'm like, I'm done. When I see what one human can do to another human that used to be their neighbor, I'm done.
Well, I'm excited for Mexico, because I think the Mexican culture is unbelievable. Like, I'm so in love with the Mexican culture. I'm going to become a Mexican citizen. Yep.
Outside of the cartels.
That's the one.
That's got to use the cartels the right way. They're humans. They're susceptible to, social engineering, just like the rest of us.
Yeah. No, I get it. I'm with you on the culture down there. It is absolutely amazing. And the people as well. I mean, the people are just like fucking amazing too. When I was down in Bolivia, I did a bunch of climbing down in Bolivia many, many years ago. And that was another one of those places that was just Bolivia and Chile. Just amazing, amazing necks of the wood. Just one of those just beautiful, beautiful necks of the wood that I would happily go back to in a heartbeat.
My buddy just came back from Colombia because they're having like major there. So he had to go back in kind of an emergency, and he's probably never going back again. He was there all the time.
It's a shame.
One of the customers I'm working with is from Colombia and has family, and said his parents left the city and are staying at a vacation house because it's so dangerous. You just never know when there's going to be a gunshot or bombs or anything.
Yeah, it's completely gone to crap.
That sucks. Again, another one of those amazing places that, just such. I tell you, New Zealand, I'm going to retire to my AS400 near a wind farm, close to whatever. I will be sitting in my digital self in my AS400 quite happily.
I would say, yeah, New Zealand would be my.
I haven't been. I mean, I'm, everything I see, everything I read, everything. And I was actually meant to be going there before I ended up in the US. They were going to send me, I was meant to be heading to that neck of the woods. They were going to be sending me over there. And because of a slight misunderstanding, I ended up being over here. And so that was what, 22, 23 years ago now.
Wow.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy. I've lived all over the US as well, which is even nuttier. I mean, I was actually going to sit down and work it out. I remember now we're talking about it. I've been in this house now for four and a half years. And I think I'd actually have to go back and do it. I think this is the longest time in my life that I've ever been under one roof.
Wow.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
I was actually going to go back and work it out, but I'm about 95% certain this is the longest time in my life I've ever been under one roof.
Yeah, I was in the house for a long time, kind of the middle part of my life. But otherwise, in the military, you're all over the damn place.
3 years, you're up. Put your T1949 on the side of the box, and it appears at the other end of at the other end. Yeah, it's and then when I came out, I moved a bunch because of stuff I was doing.
Yeah.
And I came over here, and it was basically Virginia neck of the woods, DC neck of the woods, then Atlanta, then Georgia, Ohio, Chicago, Ohio, Atlanta, Wisconsin, back to Ohio, and then out here. And even out here, it's been what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 houses out here in 13, 12 years, something like that. Yeah.
You make my ADD look like it's nothing, man. This is awesome. I feel so much better about myself. I was like, oh man. And then you're like, oh wait, there's somebody else like me. Okay, cool.
Oh yeah. No, you were,
Love it.
no problems.
All right. That's it. Let's do a wrap. Thank you to our listeners. Huge thank you to Chris. Seriously, brother, you're one of my.
No, this was good. Thanks, guys. Ellen and Brad, much appreciated. It's nice just to hang out and talk with you guys.
Yes.
A lot of fun.
If you have something you'd like to tell us, feel free to email the show at unsecurity@protonmail.com. Actually, check the email this week. We had a really nice message there. I'll have to send it to you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was
I'll have to
surprised.
log in and look.
Oh, look, somebody does that. That's cool. If you're the social type, you can socialize with us on Twitter, except for with Brad, because Brad doesn't do social very well at all.
I'm on it. If somebody pings me directly, I'll reply.
You don't have to defend yourself, Brad. I mean, the fact is the fact. You're not good at it.
It's intentional.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm at Evan Francine, Brad's at Brad Nye, and Chris, you want to give them yours? Yeah,
I'm pretty easy to find. Psydragon1. I mean, I'm all over the place. It's just look for a large hairy thing wandering around the internet.
All right. That's it. We're gonna wrap it up. Good talk. I got to figure out how to stop this thing again.